Okay, hello everyone. It's June 1st, our Interpreter Certification Board meeting. Looks like we have enough for a quorum, so we'll go ahead and start our meeting with our first agenda item. Let's go to Jason. Karen and I are just looking at what the plans are moving forward, because typically Trenton is the one who leads the meeting. And Tony says, I can lead and run the meeting, but for the UIP business and any updates, that'll have to be on your shoulders to do that. And Jason says, that's fine. Do you have any ideas of what you want to do with this time today? We've gone through a lot of changes recently, so I'm just curious what your thoughts and any feedback on what we can do going forward. This is Michelle. Maybe we can turn the time over to Sarah, and maybe she has some thoughts on what we'll do moving forward.
Sure. Are we highlighted okay and the interpreter okay? Okay. So
Tony's saying we're good. Are we okay?
Okay,
go ahead.
Okay, just let me know if I need to stop talking and we need to make an adjustment. So yeah, hi everybody. It's been a little bit of a crazy couple weeks, and yes, we've absolutely had some not really expected staff changes, but I guess the first thing I would say is that not to worry. We've got some really good staff in the UIP program, and we are operating as usual. And we do have a lot of people off this week, so I should say a lot of it's falling on a few of our interpreters today. But we've got some great staff, and we're happy for Trenton. I don't have any updates exactly of when we're going to post the job. We're not going to wait too long, but I want to have a chance to talk to the UIP team and talk to them about what they think and where things are going, and where they see things that they might want to have me address, or what they're looking for in a leader. And once I do that, then we will get back to filling the position. Right now, Eric is still there. Eric Rue is the temporary, but as you have also probably heard, he's leaving on June 8th. And so I will be taking responsibility again for managing the day-to-day, well, not the day-to-day, the overall supervision of DSDHH. And we'll work with the managers there to make sure we continue to provide continuity and the services that we provide. I met with Jason and Karen yesterday and got some really good ideas of what they're working on and what some of the challenges are that they've been communicating with you as an advisory board. And I am happy to participate anytime and or ask or answer any additional questions you might have about that. I'll pause for a minute and see if anyone has questions. No? Okay. Oh, Michelle.
And for ease, I'll just communicate in English, but I think one of the questions that kind of came up was just with the ICB, like we're here to advise UIP, and typically on our bylaws, it talks about how we advise the director, right? With no director, and that's coming. That just goes to you. So we should just address you if we have things directly right now, and you're kind of taking on a lot of things right now in addition to your regular USR director. So.
It is nice to have a manager over the program, because they take a lot of the day-to-day. Trenton would fill me in on things, but in the absence of a manager, I'd say yes, you can report directly to me. I'm happy to participate in any meetings you think are beneficial. We can schedule different meetings if there's other issues. I'm totally open to that. You know, this is a really valuable board that we have, and I know we have some important work that's going on right now. We did brainstorm a little bit, I think, what Jason was asking, and yes, and please, I mean, I'm used to the chair of the committee running the meetings, but we certainly can have staff, however you want to do it. So thank you, Tony. And I'm not sure who the co-chair is right now. I can't remember. Is it Michelle or is it no? Who's the
Jessica.
co-chair? Wait.
Jessica.
Jessica. Okay. Is Jessica on? I don't see Jessica. All right.
She
Yes,
just
she's
joined.
here.
Okay.
I'm there.
There she is. Thank you. Okay.
Sorry, I've been
Okay.
traveling today, so.
It's okay. It's good to see you. So yeah, I mean, I think that, yes, please do communicate with me. And if there's issues that we need to do, that would be great. Some of the things that we talked about, I talked about with our administrative staff yesterday was, I have a couple things that we need to get done. And it's just been really crazy for the team with this computer system that we're still developing. And I think they'll give you an update later. So I haven't put a lot of pressure on them to do this, but we really need to update our policies in the UIP program to match all the business practice changes. And so Karen and Jason are going to look at the statute and the administrative rule and some suggestions that were made a while back on just more technical corrections. But I think it would be great to get feedback from anyone on this board that's also interested, or, you know, if you need to tell me if there's interest, I guess, in taking a look at what we come up with. I think we would look at what needs to change and then run it by you, you know, just to make sure we're not missing anything. And we need to run it by some of our other staff as well. We're not talking major things, just some cleanup. It's been a long time since the policy's been updated. So that was one thing that I know we talked about yesterday. Karen and Jason, was there something else we talked about now? I'm forgetting. Sorry, I've been driving. I've been to Clearfield and Ogden and now back, and I'm a little discombobulated. Stephanie or Stephen has a question, I think.
Yeah, Stephen does have a question.
Okay, then we'll go back to you, Jason. Hi, Stephen.
This is Stephen. Hello, Sarah. Long time no see.
I know. It's
Happy
good
to see you again.
Same.
I just have some concerns.
Mhm.
So what happened with Trenton? He had so many ideas of as far as, you know, that he was suggesting and recommending, but so many of his ideas were shut down. And I think he left because he was just feeling disheartened and just feeling like the deaf culture was being neglected. So when we hire a new director, we want to make sure that those ideas are listened to and followed up on in the future. We want someone that's open-minded and willing to work with us, both the deaf community as well as DWS, because I think we saw what happened in the past. And I think I don't know, not having Trenton around is going to, I think, change things.
Yeah, I mean, am I still, yes, I'm still unmuted. Yes, it's a big loss. I was surprised. I didn't know Trenton was considering leaving, and he didn't give me any explanation. But I assume that you're correct in general. There's probably some frustration there. And, you know, of course, he did have excellent ideas. And I think we have great staff that share some of those ideas. And that's part of what we look to this board for, is to advise us on things that we should be doing, things we could be doing better, things we're not doing, or things that we're doing well that we should keep doing. So I think all of that is very important. And I'm sure we'll be able to move forward in a positive direction. Stephen, I think you still, yes?
Yeah, so I just think that that person needs to be like involved. Because Trenton like gave a lot of suggestions and then he seemed to be stuck and it was really frustrating. And he just felt like as the deaf community and as a person himself, like he couldn't get through. And so that was the struggle. Is give me 1 second, sorry.
I believe he's mentioning that whoever takes the role should be also involved in the interpreting field.
Okay. Jessica?
Yeah, Jessica. Yeah, thank you for joining us today, Sarah. I do want to like mention that before, I want to say it was like 2 years ago, I think, before like COVID hit and everything like that, we were in the process of writing like and changing with like
Tara Connolly.
with Tara
Yeah.
Connolly. We're in the process of
Policies and procedures.
yes. And so I would like to see kind of what more can happen with that before like we have someone take over and have someone new all over again. It might save us time to do that.
Yeah, we are not going to redo anything that hasn't been done. There were some drafts, you're right, some changes that Tara did. We're not starting from scratch. So I think we just need to get it in front of some people and get the approval so we can publish it. It just has not been done or finished. So I think that will be one of our internal priorities, just to make sure staff look at it and that we get that final, and then we just have it. It just needs to be cleaned up, really. It shouldn't take long. You know, I guess would like some direction from you all if you do want to see it, or any kind of, you know, any kind of overview of statute, rule, anything. I know, you know, Trenton really did dive into some of those policies and the state law and understood there are some varying things in those three different mechanisms for policy. So we just want to make sure they're aligned appropriately and represent what we're actually doing in practice. And some of that is the computer system, you know, making sure that things that we've changed are now reflected in policy.
Okay, and Michelle has a question.
This is Michelle. I just wanted to ask, I don't know if it's part of policy or even just practice within DSCGH. Does it have to be, and I could be wrong, I'm not even sure, but does it need to be open for public comment at all? Like,
Not
does
the policy, no. The
No.
statute, so we have all three in UIP. We're lucky. We have our state statute that gives some broad definitions and broad authority. And then we have a section on administrative rules, which further defines the state statute. And then we have our policy manual, which is how we do things day to day, kind of the basics of how we do our business in the UIP program. So I'm having a hard time thinking of a good example, but there are just some little things, and we'll send it out. We can send it out to whoever wants to review it with some red lines or strikeouts, and just so you can kind of tell what's changed. And I think we could even just change it internally, but I think I thought the advisory board might want some just eyes on it, just to make sure we're not missing anything. This does not change the statute or the rule. I know there are some things that would need a statute change, like over the years, we've talked about enforcement of violations of interpreting and some other things that have come up periodically. That's a statutory change. Some of the reporting structure, like who does the advisory board advise, those kinds of things are in statute. But there's other things like how many days we give people to renew, or the actual standards that we require for interpreters. Those are things that we can control because this group has been given that ability to advise on what we should do. So, but this one does not need public comment.
Are you opposed to having public comment?
No,
I feel
no,
like
no.
it's those
Of course
policies
not.
and those, I
No.
think it's those policies and those day-to-day that are what
Mhm.
impacts the community the
Sure,
most. So what,
sure.
you know, when I renew, how long I have to renew, what happens when I need to appeal, all those kind of things. So
Yeah.
I think it actually would be wise, if you're not opposed to it, that we could, I don't know if, I don't want to belabor the process. So even just making it open for public comment for all, and that includes us as the ICB, so that we can
Mhm.
look at it at the same time.
Sure.
And then whatever comments come in, making those changes, and then we review a final draft or whatever it
Yeah.
might look like. But I think it's the things that we do have control of as the PPM
Yeah.
with the policies and procedure manual, that's really what is impactful for interpreters in the community.
Yep.
Sometimes
that would
statutes
be
and things like
great.
that, we can't always change, but
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that the only caveat I would give, or thing to consider, would be that now that we have a computer system that, you know, pretty much defines what we do and requires programming to change it, things that we want to change that aren't in there would just take time. You know, it could be something that maybe we can't do it this particular round, but it's still great feedback for the team to go back and consider. And we could go back and find out what it would take to make the change and what kind of impact. We just have to think about that system now every time we make a change, because it costs money to change it. But other than that, I'd love the input. I think our team would too. I'm sorry, hopefully I'm not putting words in your mouth, team, but I think that would be great. Tony?
Yeah, and Tony,
Oh,
comment.
okay.
So I think that would be great if we could just also add like a future agenda item in there to let them know like the UIP process and kind of share it with others and give people the opportunity to discuss that. And like if it's like deep and serious, that we can like maybe have like a committee or something. It would just be good to kind of announce that information and changes and share that with the agenda and everything.
I think it would be great to get your ideas on how and who. We can put it out with the agenda, no problem. I did, Jason, based on your conversation with me yesterday, find out we can in fact put video minutes and video advertisements on our site where we talk about meetings and agendas and minutes. So we can maybe make our announcements a little more visible if we want to. But we'll rely on you and our staff to make sure that, you know, word gets out. I would also, maybe we would, maybe it would be helpful if the board could help us with like a structure that they think would be a good way to do this. Like, you know, do we send out, we could do a survey, we could just send it out and let people send us comments and then sort through them later. You know, I think this is actually going to be kind of a two-step process. We're going to need to do some of our technical fixes to make the policy match what we're currently doing. And then it sounds like maybe there's a second step where we just want more general input about the process and what's in the policy. Is that a fair summary? Because really the policy changes we're talking about are not that significant. They're pretty, it's like updating wording and well, you'll see what I mean when we send it out, but it isn't very not big changes. So if this board wants to advise us, which is totally appropriate, on how we do things, then we should create a mechanism to do that. And maybe that's in addition to making our technical corrections so that we can get the one done. It's been outdated for a couple of years.
Michelle.
This is Michelle. I'll just add, I think that's great. That's great feedback. Maybe a suggestion, and I'd love to hear from others too, but maybe we could simply just have you make the technical changes, and maybe if there's a subsection that we have concerns about or that might be impacting the community, then maybe it's just that subsection or something that gets sent out. So it's not the entire PPM. I don't know who loves to read through those, but but maybe just making those technical changes. And then if we have concerns, like we should get impact that's controllable, right? Like, as you mentioned, the program is not always within your control, but within the means that we can. Is there other concerns that we just need to make sure that we hear and just have the community an opportunity to chime in if there is a concern?
I love
But
that.
just giving that. But maybe
could
come
even-
here first, and maybe it's a
Yeah.
sub task force. I wonder if we've done that before with other task force with the ICB. So I don't know if we want to create a task force when you're ready to. I mean, I think it goes to the UIP team primarily, but maybe there's a task force that's reviewing as you guys are redoing this. And then if there's any concerns we feel like we need to bring to the full board, and then anything out to the community from there.
Okay, so how often do you guys meet again?
Required quarterly.
Quarterly?
Yeah.
Do you usually just meet quarterly right now?
Mhm.
Okay. If I might, well, let's see, I'm just trying to think of a way to do this. I want to talk to our team a little bit about the best way to approach it. So why don't we go back, put some ideas together on how we might do this effectively, and send out, we can certainly send out kind of the bare bones draft of what we're thinking just for corrections. But to me, it sounds like we want some more meaningful input, but I don't know. Why don't we send you the policy and you can let us know like what those changes are, and if you think there's going to be an opportunity for feedback, and then you can kind of help us, and then we could do it as part of our next board meeting, maybe, like, even do some public comment. I don't know. We can figure it out as we go, but I'll work with our staff and make sure that we're getting the communication out to you on what we're doing.
And then Tony has another comment or question. I'd like to know, like, if we could share the policy with everyone here, kind of get an idea, and then make sure that the next board meeting is like, it's put on the agenda for us to discuss. Because like Michelle said, it really just, those small things impact the community most. It's not like the higher technical things, but it's those small details that really do impact us as a community. And so I just want the public to be able to have a voice and share that. So I think it would be a good idea if we could share it right now before the board meeting, and then we can add time to the agenda to discuss it and for public comment for our next meeting, so that the community can join in and, give that feedback as well.
Okay, so give us a few weeks, because I just talked to the staff about this yesterday. So in fairness to them, I want to give them a little bit of time. We've got some staff out of town right now, and I want it to be, inclusive of the group, to make sure we're capturing what we're currently doing in policy. We're not really talking about making changes. We're trying to make sure our policy reflects what we're currently doing. So give us a few weeks. We will get it out in plenty of time before the next meeting. And then you can give us some feedback on what you think, and go from there. Because it's kind of hard to talk about when you don't know what we're really talking about.
Yeah, okay.
But it shouldn't be anything new at this point or different than what we're doing in practice. It's just that if you look at our policy manual and actually read it, it's probably not exactly what we're doing right now, because it hasn't been updated as we have rolled out the new computer system, as wonderful as that is. And I know a lot of imperfection there, we're working on it, but so we'll definitely send it out in a few weeks, and we'll stay in communication with you.
Are there any questions that you wanted to discuss with Sarah? This is Tony saying that. Okay, thank you so much, Sarah, for keeping us updated and letting us know everything that's going on. And we look forward to, having continuous communication, and we'll kind of let you know what's going on and vice versa, and just a great partnership. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next thing on our agenda, we'll turn it over to Stephanie. Hi, I'm Stephanie. Hello. We haven't set up any workshops as of yet. We just are really struggling with so we have kind of relied on UTRID to kind of get things set up. And we've been working with Teddy. She's doing awesome with UTRID. And she's had meetings and it's just been a good process. It's kind of worked out really great. But we are struggling to like fill out the paperwork and get that sent in. And so we just need to set up our own like way of filling out the paperwork and getting the process going. Because it's kind of hard. And I'm not sure why we just have that. We've been struggling with that. And so we're just working on that. And so I want to let you know, we're not just like sitting here doing nothing, but we're trying to work on that right now. So.
And to
And just to clarify that, really we have like filled out the paperwork and sent it in, but UTRID seems to have like not gotten it. Is that right? Yeah, it's been kind of frustrating. We don't know why it's been hard to get through, but Michelle, yes.
Have you tried other CMP sponsors, Caboose or other?
Yeah, we've discussed that. And Trenton wants to try to create that partnership with UTRID. Recently there was a few meetings and I think we just kind of like, thank you for working with us kind of idea. But we just need to communicate.
Using ASL communication, ASL.com.
ASLCom and like working with the community. So yeah. And Michelle again has a comment. I think it's a challenge, like UTRID is run by volunteers, so that's a challenge as well. So if we just are like waiting, it will just take a lot of time, but ASL communication uses their staff and like people that are hired. It's like a business that's running. And so they have a process of how to like run things. And it's not necessarily volunteer. So that's the difference between those two, or the challenge. Yeah, it's been about 8 months now. It's been a long time. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we can try working with ASLCom. I've been, and we'll just continue that process. I've been in contact with them, so. Okay, any more questions, or is that clear? Stephanie, good? Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Oh, and Stephen has a comment. I wonder if ASL comms like can support like us going forward to have successful interpreters involved. And Stephanie saying yes. So ASLCom, I think we should go ahead with them, like joining or having interpreters join and be part of the certification process. And Julie, if you can help me.
Mentioning that the interpreters can get continuing education hours for attending those workshops. And I missed the last part. And Stephanie says, my understanding is that it works just like any other organization. For example, RID, if you're working with them, it's just different people approving the process. There's a certain standard or procedure that they have to follow in getting those credits approved and those workshops approved. Does anyone else have any questions?
And Jessica.
Jessica. And if you don't mind clarifying for the board, that you have to follow the RID. UIP can't just have its own workshops and without, or provide that credit to the interpreters, it has to go through the RID sponsorship or accreditation. And Stephanie says, so there's a separate process. We did talk about the idea of paying, having a pool of money that we can have our own workshops and using our budget to do that. We're just not sure if we have enough money to start that process. So that's something to look into. And Jessica says, the right word is CEHs, continuing education hours in Utah. So you can't have just CEHs for people earning credits. It's not available until RID approves the workshop. So that's where the process starts with the continuing education hours. And then can you do that later with the CEUs? And Stephanie says, I'm just not familiar enough with that. Michelle, maybe you can answer that better. Michelle says, I can help clarify. So you're right. So the state UIP process approves the continuing education hours. But this, as far as CEUs, the continuing education units, that's based off of RID. So anyone can set up a workshop, but the credit, that can be based on credit or no credit. So USDB offers workshops, UIP can offer workshops, and people can attend for credit. And a lot of people want to know, are CEUs available for that workshop? But you do have to go through a process to get that approved. If you want someone to attend a workshop, it's best to have CEUs and CEH approval for both. So somebody can, because some people have both national and state certification. So you want to be able to have both credits. And Jessica, thanks for the clarification. And just because I'm seeing the risk of having all or nothing kind of attitude or perspective, having RID approval or none, and just having state. So need to have workshops that offer both. So I'm kind of lost as to why it's all or nothing. This is Paul. I don't think it's either or all or nothing. We tried to get a feel of what the community needs are as far as workshops, but to be honest, there are plenty of workshops out there that are available for interpreters, whether it's online, national workshops. And I think most people, well, many people have both certification, national level certification, RID, so they need the CEUs, and also many have state CEHs. So if you have both, it's nice to go to a workshop and get both credits rather than go and realize what a waste. I didn't get enough credits. I got enough for my national certification, but I didn't get enough for state or vice versa. So we're trying to set up, if we're trying to set up our own workshop for the benefit of helping our community, then we want to be able to have both the CEUs and the CEHs. Also, UTRID, they have had some problems, and I'm not sure whether it's known or not, but I do believe that they're being audited. And so there was a national audit recently. And so I think that a lot of their work and their hours of work has been focused on that. And so maybe that's the delay, and that's why they're so behind. But we still need to do our best to continue to work with them as a partnership. So we'll see if that can be repaired. But in the meanwhile, maybe we can find other ways in the interim until we can get back to using UTRID. And that's something that could be an ongoing discussion. This is Tony. And just to add to what Paul says, UTRID is under the RID, so they're a perfect partner for running these credit hours. So perhaps UTRID is just bad timing. They're overwhelmed with other things they've got going on. So thank you, Stephanie, for your comments and looking at other options. Maybe it's just bad timing again with the UTRID. And in the meantime, let's work with ASLCom or another sponsor that we can work with for now until we're able to go back and with UTRID and see what happens there. And Dwayne says, good idea. Anything else? Jessica says, I have one more thing. Go ahead, Jessica. So are we considering having consumer workshops for the deaf and hard of hearing community and have the focus on them as far as using interpreters better and that sort of workshop? Is that still in the works? Are we planning to have community based workshops or community focused workshops? Paul says, I think that's what was one of Trenton's ideas. You know, he has a real heart for the community and educating and teaching the community. So that was, I think, something that he had come up with. This is Tony. If we set up a consumer-based workshop educating the consumers of interpreting, you wouldn't need any CEUs or CEHs. It would just be more advocacy-based. And so UIP could definitely take the lead on that. And so that's a great idea. I do support that. I like that idea. 1 second, Sarah. Turn on my video. There we go.
Okay. I was just going to say, Paul or team, what would we need to do that? I mean, is there a reason why we couldn't, or is that something we can talk about when I meet with you guys, and we can kind of talk about what that might look like and what help we might need to do that?
This is Paul. So you're talking about teaching people how to use interpreters. As far as that goes, we could definitely do that. It would be just like doing a community class.
Okay.
So we can just ask for a community partner to come in, or one of our own staff could teach it, or we would just need to put it on the books.
I would love to talk about that. I think that would also be beneficial for like other state agencies and even our own agency in terms of, I mean, there's two different things. There's kind of a consumer of interpreters from the hearing person side, and then there's the consumer from the deaf person side. So I like both. So let's talk about that more when we meet.
This is Paul. Just to clarify, I think it was more of, so we interpreters were taught in interpreting classes, we take workshops and things like that. And Trenton was thinking more along the lines of deaf consumers, they're using interpreters. And so the consumer knows how to, for example, how it feels to be a client of an interpreter. So he planned to teach that, I believe. So that's something that Milena or Stephanie could partner with, whether it's hearing or deaf together, teaching a workshop or class to consumers. So just wanted to clarify, we interpreters tend to teach workshops for interpreting to better our skills. And then, but this was more based for the community. And I think it's just that we need to figure out who would take the lead on that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it.
Sounds good. Michelle? So Jessica, if UIP was planning on that, looks like they'll continue to work on that. I know that the curriculum is NCIEC, and so for self-advocacy curriculum, I think that Kim Thornsberry, who used to work at the Deaf Center, she was trained in that, and now she's back here in Utah. And so it might be worth reaching out to Kim, who is an advocacy trainer. And so she might be a good one to reach out to, that she could, again, she received that training. So she might be able to provide some advocacy training, just putting that out there to share with the group. This is Paul. I love that idea because I love community partnerships. I love having their buy-in from the community. And so bringing someone in from our community and they consult with us and they help us and we benefit. And it's just not only us but having those partnerships within the community is beneficial to all. Okay, this is Tony. Any other questions or discussion on that topic? Looks like Stephen has a question or comment. Says, sorry, to kind of pick on that idea, but Jessica, you talk about deaf and hard of hearing. It's not just deaf and hard of hearing. Don't forget the deaf blind. We use interpreters as well. So please also in the future, don't forget our community as well. And Tony says, thank you, Stephen, for the reminder. Good point. We need to be inclusive of all of our family. Yes, great point. Okay, moving on to the next agenda item. So administrative, I think Karen or Jason, you wanted to talk about a system update. This is Jason. I'm sure most of you are aware that we recently distributed an update on our website for the interpreters who are looking at their cycle and their credit hours. There's still a lot of bugs on that system, and we are in the process of working on correcting those. It's just been a lot of barriers to getting those issues resolved, but just want you to know that we're continuing to work on that. If you have any specific things you need to let us know, please do. Does anyone have any questions about the system update? Or Karen, do you want to add anything to that? And Karen says, we are really doing our best to work with the interpreters who have been struggling to get access to the system. I understand they're feeling frustrated trying to upload their RIDs, copies of their workshop hours. And so we are doing our best. And sometimes Jason and I are trying to find workarounds to help them finally be able to get those things uploaded. But so far, the website seems to be pretty good, but at the same time, it's caused us some increased frustration, but again, we're doing our best. And Tony says, thank you both for all the hard work. I know that technical difficulties can be, have pros and cons, and it can be frustrating, but I know making those changes is difficult. And I checked out the website recently and found a few problems, but or I will check it out. And Amelia just put something in chat. So it's, oh, thank you for the comment, Amelia, that tracking the hours is better. Any other questions or comments in regards to the website? This is Tony. Okay, moving on. Karen, you talked about the ITP approval. And Karen says, hello, everyone. So I'm responsible for the ITPs. So Salt Lake Community College, Utah Valley University, and UTU, which is Utah Technical University, formerly Dixie State University, which is, so they've changed their name now to UTU. Am I right? Is that right? Allison? And Allison says, yes, that's correct. So there's 3 ITPs that have been approved for the next 3 years. And so we'll keep an eye on them, make sure that if there are any changes, we will keep you updated. Our ITP committee is always keeping an eye on that. So Trenton and I were working right before Trenton left. We found that there was an issue. So I uploaded the new, some new businesses. I'm going to show you. Let's see. So one of those businesses is Access Simplified. And this is their sign. So this is a recently develop business. They've been in business the last couple of years. So maybe you're familiar with Gary Dean Christensen. He's responsible for translating, and he's training deaf and hearing interpreters who are videoed, and they are interpreting different things for churches, for commercials, for many different subjects. Access Simplified goal is to train to translate from paper into video form. They educate, they provide workshops, they provide mentoring to those people who work at different businesses. I have worked there myself, and I've interpreted many different videos. So you look at the document and then you're videoed interpreting it, and you can get RID credits, UTRID, a CDI certification. That's their eventual plan.
It's to do CDI certification.
I can't see both. So, so it's for deaf individuals who are working at Access Simplified, who are interested in using their filming techniques and work related to certification. And some of their partnerships are they're filming. That could be for any interpreting agency. They could be filmed, and then that can be distributed, and that information can be shared with everyone. So the partnership is still in process. They're working on that, and we can look at that as business trained, so that they can be certified as either a CDI or an interpreter. We always focus on just ITP, but now we are going to broaden the scope and start focusing on some businesses who are training those who want to become interpreters. I'm sorry, I've forgotten how to turn this off. Let me work on that for a minute.
And Julie, we can switch. And Tony's saying you click at the bottom. There's like a little bar at the bottom that you click. Oh, and Michelle's saying the top bar. Yeah, the top bar. There's like a little thing window you can click. Perfect. Okay, yes. So this is like a business. And what were you gonna say, Tony? Yeah, I remember about 3 months ago, the board meeting, we all were talking about with Trenton, like the ITP and having the 3 different kind of categories to look over, and had like a list of like trainings and different things. And the board approved that 3 months ago. So now we're setting things up. We have like an assistant committee of volunteers that are brought together to discuss everything. But that was for the ITP, like college or a university. And so just to like with the specific college programs related with education, my concern about a business is like, where is that like evaluation to make sure that the program is being run correctly? Like anyone could be put in there and then certified, but what's behind that? You know, what's the education and the information that is being taught to these individuals? I do see that a business could possibly do this. I just think we need to be careful, make sure they aren't just like welcoming anyone, or like if the board feels they want to like kind of pursue that option for a business, to become kind of like an ITP idea, we need to research their program and kind of look into it to make sure it matches everything that we need. That's my concern. So, yeah, and that's why I wanted to comment. I saw a comment in the policy and found there like a sentence that said ITP through college or school. And then it added like a little thing saying a bit, if we could add a little something saying business training to pay the staff like to become certified. So it would be more that. And so I don't know if we can add that in the training policy as like a business. And yeah, I understand it would be kind of general, like, oh, I want to join that and then I can work. It's kind of a touchy issue. And so, yeah, it's just how to handle that. If the business too, like we have to also include like Sorensen or these different, like we need to consider that. Oh, that's true as well. Yeah. So it's kind of very broad as like a business. Business is super broad. And so I'm just curious, like to have that perspective. Michelle. Just to clarify,
UIP scope.
they don't have their own like teacher and everything. You have to like apply and get like your UTIS certification and everything like that. And then you have internship opportunities that allow the Utah scope, and that they have the internship opportunities. So I'm just confused as to.
I'm confused why Access Simplified wants to partner.
Is it for an internship or are they including that? Like, is it just for their own business? Like, is it like job training or is it like an internship? Like, are they offering training and they're like becoming a community partner to then like train interpreters? Is that the idea? It seems is from, so it is like being run like is the same idea as like the ITP. You know, like I worked at Salt Slick for many years. And so I know how they run everything there. So the business is kind of like that. So I'm just curious as to how we can look at that policy before we approve it and make sure everything's okay. And just to clarify, this is Tony, if it is an internship, they are then given certification. Yeah.
Parents is more of a permit. They're given a student permit.
So
once they get that student permit, then they have to be with a certified interpreter to work. That's how that's run, to make sure that they are approved through their teacher, and then they submit the student to all the paperwork to us, and then we approve it and then send that back to the student and teacher.
And how long is that? Like a 3-month process, or how long is that? It's up to a year. It's up to a year. So any other questions? I think we'll wait and kind of look at the policy first, and then we'll go ahead and think about it and discuss that and see if we can do that. Is Tony? Really, yeah. We can definitely give advice on like the policy and kind of look at different things as a board and discuss that, like how we feel, how if we support the idea or if we're kind of unsure about that, and we can discuss it more. I can see the possibility, yes, but like a deeper purpose, I think we'll have to discuss it. It just depends. So just what are everyone's opinion on that? And Amelia, yeah. It seems that if any business in general wants to join or do training for interpreters, why not partner with the college or university and allow the college or university themselves to run that training program? And then the business can then like offer an internship opportunity. It seems more easy for everyone in that case. Yeah, that's right. Like if the school like does training and then the business offers the internship, like with the student permit, that should be fine. Yeah, yeah. Michelle. Oh, Paul, sorry. I think like Access is focused on like the training right now.
On
I don't know.
CDI training.
Oh, yeah, CDI training. They don't have like this, the CDI like specific training. So I don't know if like the CDI is partnered with a CDI. For example, like an agency, that's fine. They have a CDI in training with a like hearing interpreter, but I'm not sure. I'm just thinking right now, like I'm just concerned about the CDI internship with someone and the hearing interpreter is like support. It'd be fine if there were like student volunteers, but I don't know. I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Like if a hearing interpreter student, Matt, like was partnered with a CDI and kind of figured things out that way. And then instead of sending a CDI with another CDI. And that'd be a good idea for that. Any college like SLIC or UVU or UTU, those three like have like they have deaf students that show up and talk about and discuss like interpreting. Yeah. So any other questions with that? And Paul.
Who is liable if the CDI is still learning? So it's good for them to get experience, and most of it is text to sign interpreting, I believe. I don't believe it's live interpreting. I believe most of their interpreting is text to live. So I'm not sure what the impact would be to the community and interpreters. And Dean, who is a CDI, is certified, and he thought maybe training other deaf to become certified interpreters. So looking at that partnership, that's Access Simplified's goal, excuse me. And Karen says, who was going to make a comment? Michelle says, as far as liability goes, it would be the ITP, which means it would be Access Simplified. So are they would recommend the students, and then UIP approves the student based on the ITP suggestion. And so it's the ITP who takes down that ownership or liability for the student permit. And Karen says that's true. And Paul says, meaning the business, like for example, Dean at Access Simplified would be the one who was the representative. He's the certified person, so he would have to be with that intern. But at the same time, it's a little bit odd because he's getting, his business is getting the profit. So it could be a nice way to get experience, I think. That's the positive in this situation. If they really are, doing a lot of interpreting and translating for the person to get that knowledge and experience with a mentor there. And Tony says, they want to support interpreters in the community, but at the same time, they're profiting as a business. So it is maybe a little conflict. Of course, there's not a lot of opportunities for CDI to receive training and experience. So I like the potential for the CDI to build their skills. But I know with the ITPs, colleges and universities have a structure for that. They have a certain amount of hours that are expected to be attained in mentorship. And, you know, looking on your slide, it said it was very basic. So I'm just curious if UIP allows that partnership to Access Simplified, could they become an ITP? And what would that look like? What would their structure be? How would they run that? How would they monitor it? So those are the questions that I'm curious about. And Karen says that's true. And Paul says at the same time, you know, our test is based on skill. And so they can pass, if they can pass the test, then they pass the test. So I don't know, really, you know, sometimes colleges and universities use, what do you call it, temporary permits and allow them to pay less for that. So they're both gaining, but, you know, so I guess the business would also have that advantage as well. And Karen says, thank you for all the questions and your feedback, something to think about and how we can look at seeing how we can perhaps eventually partner with other businesses. Access Simplified is one that will be on hold for now, but again, thank you for your comments and feedback. Allison, I noticed you had your hand up. Allison says, I'm curious, you said
The internship is paid or not paid?
how are they not being paid? And this is just a temporary certificate. It's a provisional. But are they being paid for their work? And Karen says, what do you mean being paid? And Jason says, is it a paid internship versus non? Or
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna speak because I'm driving and everything's bouncing around. But I thought I heard Tony say
hold on, we need to
something
get the
about-
interpreter on the screen.
You're good. I'm here, Julie.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, it's kind of bouncing around, but I thought Tony said something about the interns, people with student permits getting paid less or something. I thought that's what I caught, but our interns, when our students go out, they have student permits and they have to work with certified interpreters, but the students don't get paid. The interns don't get any kind of pay. Or did I misunderstand that?
And Karen saying, or Paul is saying, we discussed like with the business, like what it would look like for them to kind of take advantage of that. Because the university uses the students like temporary permits, meaning the college pays for like other interpreters as well. So you have both of them. So
Right.
There's like a way to do that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And just this is a little bit off, but for some of the like legal like terminology idea with VRI company, I was trying to think like out of state, but like when they are paid.
They pay UIP.
UIP, they're able to like interpret here. So
They pay UIP for the ability to interpret here. And so that may need to be rewritten on how we approach that, especially with this Access Simplified services. Maybe we could, you know, copy that model or that.
So you mean like with VRI, we have like a few interpreters that are out of state that are pay like UIP pays and
They pay UIP.
or, yeah, they pay UIP to continue their certification.
And
Yeah,
just
yeah, go ahead, Julie.
they pay for the privilege. So they pay for the privilege to be able to work here. And just Tony says, you're talking about Jessica paying for the ability to work here. So there's a difference between that and Access Simplified. Jessica says, I understand that, but UIP can maybe rewrite that and use that VRI example to catch up with technology, especially, you know, with having COVID and that experience, having VRI at hospitals, the company benefits from using state privilege to work in our state. So we're kind of talking about the same thing, using that same model. We could use that approach with other businesses, such as Access Simplified for the CDI. And I know it's different. The idea is different. This is a stretch. It's not exactly the same thing, but maybe just picking some of that terminology and maybe using that idea or that approach. And Karen says we need to look at the policy because right now it also includes businesses. So we'll just hold off on that part as far as Access Simplified, as far as putting them down as a business. Michelle, you had something? I was just going to comment, it is different between the student permit and an emergency provisional permit, and then getting your certification. The provisional permit is for very unique circumstances. It doesn't really apply. We have so many certified CDIs. We're getting to have more and more CDIs. So any business that had a good valid explanation to get an emergency permit for a CDI, maybe in a rural area, for example, you may need to provide an emergency permit for someone who just moved to Utah and a company's hired them to interpret, but they don't meet the state certification, but they have other certification. They may be given provisional until they get the Utah certification. So we would recognize that, but that would be only for emergency purposes. So that's the only situation I could think of for emergencies, because we have enough now certified deaf interpreters that I don't see the need for the emergency. And Karen says, so there's the difference between having the provisional and an emergency provisional, and then certified interpreters. So we do know that we just need to be aware of that the businesses are mentioned there, and we need to continue to look at that. So this is Tony, maybe let's look at that, then share that with us. And, you know, as far as the businesses go, give us make sure that you continue to keep us updated on all of that. And Tony says, any other questions for Karen or comments? This is Jason. So the policy with ITP says training programs, including interpreter training programs, ITPs, internships, residencies. And I missed that last. And on the job training programs. So this is pretty open. The only problem is that it also says open to student permits must be for a student. So that's a little bit strange how that's phrased. So, and it does kind of leave it open. This is Karen. It says on the job training. That means, I think that's for businesses. That applies to businesses. This is Tony. It's a little vague. It says, so must be a student, but that's a little bit of a conflict. So maybe that's where UIP cleans some of that up so that it's more clear, and then we can look at that. And Karen says yes. This is Michelle. One concern, they're fine interpreters on the job if they stay as far as Access Simplified. Just have to clarify that they want to partner with other interpreting agencies, 5-Star, Interwest, ASL Com, so they're training people to become community interpreters. So that's a little bit different. They're staying within their business scope, but Sorensen had an internship program with some of their students, but they stay within their group. They train their own interpreters, and so it's a little bit different as opposed to community interpreters, sending them out into the community, but who is approving their training program is the question, and who's approving their curriculum and their mentoring hours. So that's the concern. As colleges, they already have the accreditation in place. They have a system that we've come to trust, but with the new business trying to do an ITP, we don't know what their system looks like. And is UIP going to be responsible to monitor that? That's going to be a lot of work for UIP. And nationally, we already have a system in place, CCIE. And that's the accreditation process for colleges and universities that they go through to have in their interpreter training programs. So why reinvent the wheel? We have the ability and they have the scope to monitor those ITP programs. So I think that's sort of outside the scope of UIP monitoring the curriculum of a business. And so again, it's very vague on what exactly needs to happen. Colleges, like I said, and interpreting training programs are already accredited, but UIP trying to create a system to monitor that would be a lot. This is Tony. Thank you, Michelle. I agree. And that's my point exactly, is that colleges and universities already have a system in place for accreditation, whereas a business does not. And I feel like we just don't have enough information. And again, it would be a lot on the shoulders of UIP to monitor that. So again, we'll see what happens. I think for, working with other interpreters, them monitoring their own interpreters, and then but sending them out into the community, that not only affects certification, do they have the experience to be out there? So it's important. We need to better understand that. Amelia, you had a question or comment? Amelia says one more comment. If their goal is to help people become trained certified deaf interpreters, that's an awesome goal. So how we can better support that goal would be through the colleges and university training programs that are already established. There's a system in place that can do that. So how do we better support that and figure that out? Providing that support to CDIs and our community so they can get the training they need to become certified. And Paul says right now there is none, right? And no, North Star. So if it's a controlled environment, most of their work is translation. I don't think that's really a big problem. But if it's actually sending them out in the community to do work, that's a whole different story. I'm lost. Who's talking?
Allison.
Allison, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Julie, are you taking?
No, I'm not kidding.
Sorry. I just feel like it's not fair, how to set up their own program. At the university, it's okay. It's been really hard and it's kind of a struggle. But with a business setting it up on their own, the interpreters, I just feel like something's not right about that. It just doesn't seem right. Yeah, I think it depends, Paul says. And David has a comment. What I would propose is we contact
A representative to come, and then we can ask questions of them. Right now, we're just doing a lot of assuming and guessing. So maybe we just ask a representative to come out and have that discussion.
Yeah. And Michelle has a comment. I just want to mention that I feel like for now, there's no training for a CDI in the community, and they're doing something. So maybe we can suggest a training for now, because there's not anything in the community right now.
There used to be the PSC grant, and North Star was doing that, providing some training. and we no longer have that PSC grant. And so there is a gap in our community. There's not training provided for CDIs.
And then I agree, like, there's been like things that have been shut down or trainings that have been shut down. And so, for Access Simplified, you know, like to explain what it looks like and get some good information and discuss how we feel about that moving forward would be a great idea. Okay, Karen says, okay, Tony, so is there any more discussion or questions about that? And Karen says, I think we're okay, we're good. Today's agenda, we only had 4 things, so we've done that, but if you come up with any ideas about future agendas, there's UIP interpreters, sorry, I missed a few things, what that looks like. Is there anything else we want to discuss today or anything else we wanted to add to the agenda? Michelle's saying, I think with the PPN, just what's there. And Michelle, maybe, I don't know the timeline. Sarah, if you want to let me know, like the hiring timeline and things like that, what that'll do, and just moving forward, what's going on.
I don't have it now, but I will. Okay.
Yeah, just for the future agenda or meetings. And this is Michelle again. I do have one more thing. Some of you know, or maybe you don't know, but right now for RID testing, there's no like, sorry. For RID testing, there's no like place to take the test in Utah right now. So before USU did support it, but because there was like a program with North Star, but now North Star doesn't have that program anymore, and so they've closed that program, and so they've closed the testing for RID. So now if a person wants to take the RID test, they can't do it here in Utah. They have to travel to Vegas or somewhere else. They can't just take it here. So it's not UIP's responsibility. It's UTRID's responsibility, but right now I'm, you know, we're kind of involved with the community and trying to figure out how to like continue our partnerships with UTRID. So maybe that's a concern too, is that people wanting advanced certification are really limited. And there's nothing wrong with like the UIP testing. But the higher certifications, you just have to like, if they want a higher certification, they can't do it here in Utah. So maybe we can discuss hiring someone with UTRID. I don't
Invite
UTRID and figure out what their process is or what the plan is and set up something for RID testing. And this is Paul. I think that would be a great partnership for like colleges and universities to have like trainings for interpreters or to become certified. I think that would be a great partnership for the colleges and universities. And Michelle's saying, yeah, for SLIC,
Connie Spanton-Jex.
Connie Spanton-Jex was saying something like that. And then I'm not sure what happened, but UTRID took over and they were working with Cindy Coomer. And then it got transferred to like North Star and now it's been shut down. So there's not anything now. So it's just traded hands. And this is Tom. Michelle, I'm wondering, UVU has like a program that's specifically for interpreters. Why not set it up at UVU? Maybe they can like test them there. Yeah, and anyone in the community, like if they contact a UTRID, like the policy and everything, it's really easy.
To become a testing site.
Yeah, it pays well. It would be good to have a testing site, and like Connie at Slick and everything was working on doing that. And then UTRID like is ran by volunteers. So that's kind of the challenge with UTRID. So it's like if it was like a business or a company, it would be better. But I do think Sorensen does have a site. I don't remember exactly like if it was at headquarters or what, but people, I don't know if like people in the community are willing to set that up. Like UVU can, Slick can, but there's just, we need to have that relationship and connection with UTRID to make that happen. And it's just kind of lacking in the community right now and is affecting interpreters. And this is Karen. RID has members that like pay like their annual fee, but I wonder if we can contact them like, but wait until July because they're coming here to take the test. Like, so if we can just wait. Maybe we can propose something for them to come to Utah. That way many hearing people can like test for RID and get that higher certification, and we can encourage them, and CDIs as well. And Jason has a comment.
Allison.
Or Allison. Yeah, I was curious if there's like, sorry, Julie, can you help me
Can you
out?
send me the rules or whatever to become a site in Southern Utah?
I know the training.
Trenton was working
Oh
on
yeah, go ahead, Julie.
with Kelly to set that up. The interpreter testing down here in St. George. So if we can maybe have RID that offer the RID test as well, but I just don't know what the rules are to become a testing site here. If you, can you send that to me? And Michelle, this is Michelle.
Michelle saying, yeah.
I'm happy. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have Jennifer Harvey. She works at USU. So I don't know the rules with the exact like with the state test plus like the national test, if they like coincide or not. But we can't have like an organization. Anyway, it's kind of sticky with the state rules and using that. And so it's just a separate system. So yes, I can send that and we can just look into it. That would be great.
Allison says, thank you.
And this is Tony. I noticed that UTRD seems, that organization seems to be struggling. I'm a little bit concerned how we like maybe can think of ideas of how to support them. If we need to like have someone on the board or what we can do, maybe give suggestions. Because I've just seen kind of problems coming up with UTRID or concerns with them. And so I'm just wondering how we can support UTRID as well. Anyway, is there any last comments or discussions we want to have? Okay, we have about 20 minutes left. Does anyone want to propose something or do you want to close the meeting? I propose we close the meeting. This is Jessica. Okay, Jessica proposes. David seconds that. Dwayne. Sorry, Paul, I missed what you said.
Get back to your vacation, Allison.
Perfect. Thank you all for your time and for your involvement, and we'll see you in about 3 months. We'll send out email and communicate. So take care, everyone.